Hello everyone, I'm Jaden. Welcome to the Spider-Man franchise review, where I'm covering every theatrically released Spider-Man film up to No Way Home. This video will include spoilers for No Way Home and every Spider-Man film in it, and if I tell you to go watch it, I'm still going to talk about spoilers. This video is coming out on Christmas at 5 o'clock p.m., and if you have not seen Spider-Man No Way Home, watch that before you watch this video. I filmed this all in order. So, not in order of watching this, I'm filmed all in order of release date for each film. So yes, that's all I have to say. Spoilers, spoilers, spoilers. Spider-Man has meant a lot to me since I was a young little lad. He's always been my favorite superhero. Far From Home really disappointed me until I rewatched it. So yes, you're going to basically see my character arc and change of opinion on Far From Home. So, yeah, I'm so happy for this video. It's going to be over an hour long, I know. And then if I do a franchise review, I'm going to do an intermission, which is like a fun game, like I did the Hogwarts House for Harry Potter. And then I'm doing the initial reactions to the Amazing Spider-Man and Amazing Spider-Man 2, which is going to be my intermission for this one. So I had that before I decided to refilm all of them and do like checklists and stuff. So yeah, I don't want to talk for too long because this video is already long enough and I don't think it's going to save my computer if it's too long. So yeah, that's all I have to say. Thank you guys so much. Happy Merry Chrismakahnza, whatever you celebrate. And enjoy. Okay. What do me and Michael Scott have in common? One of the many things which, sadly, we have in common. We both hate Tobey. Okay, that's kind of I don't want to say overstatement, but I don't hate Tobey Maguire in this film. Okay, let me scroll back to okay. So, Spider-Man, 2002. The first ever Spider-Man movie... theatrical release, I guess. It's the first theatrically released Spider-Man film ever made. Was directed by Sam Raimi and starred Tobey Maguire as the titular character Spider-Man. I have Spider-Man 2 right here because it's the only Spider-Man film I have on DVD. But, or at least in its case. But, so, I was expecting this movie to not be that great because I watched, I knew it was going to be campy. But, like, this is one of the campiness I can get on board with. I wasn't expecting that. To be able to get on board with this type of camp. Because usually, I don't like campy stuff. Like, I did not like Fear Street, because it was forced campiness, or Malignant, or anything like that. I could not get on board with that. But with this, I could get on board with it, which made it so much more fun and enjoyable. Which, I'm so glad, because if this movie was bad, I would not be happy. The plot is, so basically... Peter Parker is a nerd. Tobey Maguire was a perfect casting, because he is the nerdiest person I could think of. Excluding Rainn Wilson or anyone. But, like, he perfectly fits. Like, he's not good looking, or has that specific charm to him that Andrew Garfield does. Andrew Garfield is just a little too cool for Peter Parker. Tobey Maguire is the perfect amount of loserness. Which, I don't mean that as an insult. Because he does such a great job in the role. In the first two. Third one, I'll get to that when we talk about the third one. So the plot is basically this nerd. he gets bitten by a spider at a lab exhibit. And then his uncle dies, or something. And then he goes to this boxing match. Which, okay, let me talk about that. The boxing match is so weird. And it's so, like... that's the thing that gets Uncle Ben killed. And then there's a whole bunch of other stuff that happens in the third one that completely washes the whole situation away. But, like... what? It was such a weird concept to have Spider-Man in a cage match before he's really Spider-Man. And I love Bruce Campbell's cameos that he has in all three of these films. It's so ridiculous. I have a bunch of bullet points on my phone right here. The boxing match, yeah, it's one of those scenes where it's really memorable. But, okay, so Peter climbing up the wall is so ridiculous. It's so funny. Woo! Okay. MJ. I prefer Gwen Stacy. Not Spider-Man 3 Gwen Stacy. Emma Stone Gwen Stacy. I hate not Emma Stone. I love the Emma Stone Gwen Stacy. I hate the Bryce Dallas Howard, the Jurassic World Gwen Stacy. Okay, so the plot is pretty straightforward. So Harry Osborn's dad, Harry Osborn is Peter Parker's totes bestie, and then basically his dad gets, which is Norman Osborn, played by Willem frickin' Lighthouse Grand Budapest Dafoe, becomes Dafoe. Okay, but yeah, he becomes a villain. Because he gets, like, infected with this stuff, and then he gets this really weird, wacky suit. There's literally a scene where he takes Spider-Man on a rooftop, and, like, I could totally see him cracking a beer just going, "You. Friends for life." Okay, but, like, I like, this... Okay, the voiceover is at least realistic. You hear a little bit of muffled in it. The music is pretty good. Jane Jonah Jameson is played by J.K. Simmons. I don't know what you want me to say about that. Okay, Aunt May and Uncle Ben. My issues with those two come back a little later. But this trilogy does have some High School Musical 3 syndrome, which is not a bad thing. But it definitely works for it's definitely flipped around for the second one. The third one, though, it kind of fits there. This movie's pacing, I have 2 points that can be together. It's great build-up and pacing. The pacing is honestly incredible. The movie flies by. And, like, as soon as that first hour where he's not really Spider-Man yet, really is just, it goes by really quickly, setting up what's going to happen next, who these people are. It's basically one of the best exposition dumpers, and it works really well. And the cinematography is Sam Raimi. I loved him. I love The Evil Dead. Obviously, I have it. Okay. But, like, it all molds together really well, and it's really well paced. You get to introduce to these new people that you're going to be spending the next 2 hours with. But, I love Willem Dafoe, and I think as a standalone movie, this movie is absolutely great. Yeah. The final battle is absolutely ridiculous. The best way to describe this trilogy is ridiculous. Whackers bonkers. Mind-boggling, just of how crazy it is. And how, I don't want to say stupid because it's not, but it is. It's dumb, which is so fun. Some things I don't think can get away with that. Malignant, I hated that. Because it was dumb. This one, it's idiocy builds it up. And I love that so much. Just the whole trilogy in general. And Peter Parker is such a prick in this movie. He's so annoying. And he's such a jerk. And it works so well. I love this first one. So, if you don't know my rating system, 8 out of 10 to a 9 out of 10 is a golden ticket, and a 9.5 out of 10 to a 10 out of 10 is a trophy. This is gonna this isn't gonna be the highest rating. Probably second highest. I'm not sure about Into the Spider-Verse yet. I haven't watched it at the time of filming this. But I'm going to give the original Spider-Man, directed by Sam Raimi, an 8 out of 10. A golden ticket. That's right. It's not fair, but it's getting high up there. Spider-Man 2! Spider-Man 2 is also directed by Sam Raimi. And this film up here has a right to be up there. I like this film better than the first one. And that's because of the train scene. Now, I just hopped into this, but let me talk about, there's 2 scenes that are like the greatest superhero scenes ever. And it's the train scene and the hospital scene. The hospital scene is like evil. It's like, give Sam Raimi a budget and he can do some great things. It is so well shot and super suspenseful. I don't want to say I was on the edge of my seat because I was watching them in my bed, but it works. Like, for some reason, it's like wacky horror. Like, the lighting is just horror-esque enough to where that scene can be considered as horror. I don't know. So a couple of things I forgot to mention in the first one that do come back in this one. MJ I'm not the biggest fan of MJ, but in this movie she works, I guess. Yeah, so she's basically gets saved by Peter, and then Peter rejects her, and then this movie is just going back and forth, and then he's just poor in this one. And because, you know, you can't not have a Spider-Man movie without financial troubles. That's just a run-of-the-mill superhero film. Because I love seeing Batman try to get a loan. Doc Ock is the best supervillain ever. The Green Goblin is close because it's Willem Dafoe, but Doc Ock is so cool. Come on, he has metal tentacles. How is that not cool? Spider-Man in this one, good. I do think as a sequel, it is definitely a great sequel, like Empire Strikes Back level, where it builds on the story, builds on the themes, and it continues it in, like, it's a big time jump, but you can smoothly transition through it. And now it's not like Amazing Spider-Man, where they're broken up and getting back together. It's ambiguous of whether or not Mary Jane and Peter are a thing. Because they are, but they aren't. See, Harry Osborn is pissed at Spider-Man for killing his father. And yeah, it slows his character down a lot, but it definitely creates a much better character for Spider-Man 3. Which, it's not as bad as the movie as I thought, but also not as great as the movie as I was expecting it to be. The elevator scene, there's this one scene in an elevator that I think is hilarious. So, yeah, Aunt May and Uncle Ben, back to this. There's a lot of Aunt May talking about Uncle Ben, and then how Peter technically got Uncle Ben killed in the first one, because he just let the dude run through with the money. But then Aunt May just forgives him. I mean, at least be mad for a little bit. She's too nice in this one. She's like the greatest aunt ever. Relationship drama, there's a lot of it. But it's, once again, there's a Jim, Pam, will they, won't they. MJ abandons her wedding to get with Peter? Why? She obviously wants to be with Peter. Don't get married. Don't be with anyone else. You're technically with him. And then she finds out that he's Spider-Man at the end of this. It's super wholesome. But she was like, I knew it! But, so, back to the train scene. I don't know where I was going with that. Back to the train scene. So, at the end, Peter stops the train from going further, which I think is so well done and super intense and suspenseful. And then he gets pulled back with his mask off, and the town pulls him back. They see that this 25-year-old guy pretending to be a 20, maybe 19-year-old is Spider-Man. He's just a kid. He's 30 years old, but he's just a kid. And the town collectively is like, okay, shut up, we're not telling anyone about this. Which is kind to see that people are taking Spider-Man's side. But they also did that in the first one, but it wasn't as well done as it, because it was like, if you're gonna get through Spider-Man, you're gonna have to get through us. Which they do in the train scene. And then Doc Ock's like, okay, just pushes them all aside. He's such a great villain. Oh my god. The action sequence on top of the train, it's so cool. This is the best Spider-Man movie ever. There's this one scene, symbolism, where Peter's trying to, I guess, get over Mary Jane, or is ambiguous about his feelings for her. And then he's walking past a bunch of pictures. Who knew that a movie like this would have symbolism? I don't know. Harry's character arc is built up more, and this does not pull a High School Musical 2. This pulls a Star Wars, where the second film is the best one. Empire Strikes Back, I mean. Attack of the Clone is god-awful, and The Last Jedi, I feel, is just okay. The final battle is, oh my god, I love it so much. It's so cool. It is such a cool final battle. Yeah. I love this movie. 8.5 out of 10. Golden ticket. Spider-Man 3. Spider-Man 3. Spider-Man 3 is the last entry in the Raimi trilogy. And it is not as well put together as I'd like it to. Okay. So, this one, I wrote these parts, I wrote this bullet section while watching the movie, watching the film. So, so the movie starts off with a bunch of stuff. I think this one, I'm just going to skim through the bullet points. Let me get with my biggest issue with this film. Gwen Stacy is in it for no reason other than to add a relationship drama, which is so boring. Peter in this movie pisses me off. I don't like Bully Maguire. I think it's annoying and stupid and slows the movie down by a lot. It's still a really good movie. Okay, not really good. Like, the pacing is still incredible, but it definitely makes it so much more annoying to watch. Venom is so stupid. Black Suit, Spider-Man is great. Peter and MJ's arc is annoying. Because it's will they, won't they. Peter technically cheats on MJ with Gwen Stacy for publicity. And then MJ definitely cheats on Peter after not necessarily kind of breaking up with him. I don't know. I don't care about their relationship. I prefer Gwen Stacy and Spider-Man in The Amazing Spider-Man. This movie is kind of boring. The acting is stupid. CGI is fine. Let's see. Flat acting. There we go. Harry's character arc. Something I can talk about. I love how they do him in this movie. I love how he's done in this film. How he's portrayed, his arc. It's all perfectly well put together. It's the way that, okay, so he goes from, yo, we're best bros, Peter Parker, to finding out that Spider-Man killed his father, which, yeah, and then finding out that Peter Parker's Spider-Man, to trying to kill Peter Parker, and helping Peter Parker after realizing that, I mean, his dad technically killed himself out of stupidity. Or with his own stupidity, I guess. Or underestimation of Spider-Man, I guess. I don't know. Yeah, I do like how they work that. Sandman is, I don't care what people say, is a really stupid villain. It's the idea of it, he just gets Thanos snap in the end. And it's stupid. Like, this movie is definitely the slowest and my least favorite out of the trilogy. This is the biggest amount of campiness, and it's so bad. Peter dancing in the street, it's not easy to watch. I don't like watching it. It bothers me so much. I probably most likely to watch the second one out of all of them, like rewatch, but this third one is really bad. It pisses me off so much, but it doesn't piss me off in the same way as Black Widow. Okay, go watch my Black Widow. I don't care. Yeah, it's Venom pisses me off. And if you're an atheist, and if you're a Christian and your friend's an atheist, and you really want to get them to believe in God, make them watch that church scene. Okay, I don't know. High School Musical 3, the Part 3 problem. It's, for some reason, a really high budget. And it's not that great. High School Musical 3 was my favorite one. But I'm saying it looks the best. It should be the best. But somehow it's not. It is still beat out by the original or the first two. And that bothers me a lot. Come on, if you're going to make this is the finale. If we got a Spider-Man 4, I think it would be worse than this. If they kept going, they would need to add another character to do a love triangle with. It's just a big mess. I don't care about this. Harry's memory loss, I do think, is a great aspect to his character. It's like a light in the dark type situation. So yeah, I don't know what else to say about it. It's stupid. I don't care about MJ and Peter's arc. It doesn't matter to me. Just be characters in a superhero movie. We don't need love triangles, Jim Pam love triangles, with boring characters. But I do think MJ gets better in the second one and for some of this film. And then she just pisses me off. All these characters piss me off in this film. They do a bunch of stupid stuff. Venom is awful in this film. There's no reason for him to be in there. Spider-Man 3 I'm going to give a 6 out of 10, because it's not great, but it's not bad. 6.5, sorry. 6.5 out of 10. It's not great, but it's not god-awful. 6.5 out of 10. The Amazing Spider-Man. It doesn't flow off that well. That was the Raimi trilogy. The Amazing Spider-Man. The Amazing Spider-Man is ironically directed by Mark Webb and stars Andrew Garfield, the Tick Tick Boom guy again. He's the guy in The Social Network. You know who Andrew Garfield is. So this was the Spider-Man that I grew up with. This is the one that was my childhood. He was my Spider-Man when I was a young little lad. And then I watched the Raimi trilogy, and I'm more likely to rewatch those than this. Now, this movie is kind of forgettable. It's not as forgettable as Amazing Spider-Man 2, but it is still just, like, I don't remember, like, nothing really stands out to me. They tried to do this arc with Peter's father, and it doesn't work. I love Sally Field. I love Martin Sheen. The performances by the main cast are great. It's incredible. But, like, not Oscar-worthy. The second one, I think Andrew could pass for an Oscar, but not Oscar-worthy. The CGI, so the plot is simple. This dude becomes another dude. Like, he becomes a lizard. And Spider-Man gets bitten by a radioactive spider in John Wick poster style. And yeah. Or Blade Runner 2049. I've never seen that movie. So I do like the motivation, how it goes from a revenge story to crime fighting, but it's kind of stupid. I don't it's his Spider-Man, this film is not as fun as Raimi trilogy. They decided to make it serious and sad, and it does not flow well. Yeah, I loved when I originally did this before. So this is my second time filming my reviews for these films, the Amazing Spider-Man movies. I just finished. I decided to do it after the Raimi trilogy because I don't really know how much to say. Like, I was basically saying the same thing. This was my Spider-Man, and I haven't seen the Raimi trilogy. First, 7 minutes, and this one, yeah, okay. So the final battle is pretty cool. The villain, pretty cool. Stupid, but pretty cool. Gwen Stacy is great in this film. She's my favorite Spider-Man love interest. She's better than Zendaya as MJ, who I'm not the biggest fan of, and Kirsten Dunst, I don't know her name, the ginger red, that MJ. Yeah, so the music, it's not the greatest score. The cinematography is great. It does have good CGI for 2012. The other ones have great CGI for the 2000s. The first one is amazing CGI for 2002. It was Chamber of Secrets level CGI, which is pretty good. Okay, I wrote down Spider-Man 4 on my notes because, would I rather have this or a Spider-Man 4? This. Absolutely this. They would have ran it into the ground if they went on for one more film. I think they're great, don't get me wrong, but Michael Scott, my opinion on The Office is that if Michael Scott stayed, they would have ran his character into the ground and it wouldn't have become a good, the show wouldn't have been able to keep its stability. With its minimal stability for season 8 and 9, it wouldn't have been able to work correctly. It's the same thing with this. If they kept going, it would not have flown well. And I'm glad they got Andrew Garfield out of everyone to play it. But they decided to keep going with their trend to cast British actors as Spider-Man with Tom Holland. So, yeah, the final battle is pretty cool, but the second one has a much better last half hour, excluding the little epilogue at the end. Uncle Ben's death, I think, I cried for some reason, because it's sad. It's Martin Sheen. But, come on. Yeah, there's not much to say about this movie. That's pretty much what you just can describe about The Amazing Spider-Man. It's good, I guess. There's not much to say about it. They're forgettable. That's pretty much how I'm going to describe it. But yeah, I like this one. If I were to rewatch, this probably, excluding Spider-Man 3, I'm more likely to rewatch this than the Tom Holland movies. I'll say that much. 7 out of 10, because why not? That's fair enough. Amazing Spider-Man 2! Pew, 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 pew. The Amazing Spider-Man 2 is also directed by Mark Webb. It was fine. Okay. So, the movie picks up ridiculously close after the first one with graduation. But at the end of the first one, after Gwen Stacy's father dies in the final battle, she is like, "Oh, I love you!" And Peter's like... Or no, she's not like that. She's like, "Oh, I love you." She's like, "Where you been? My father died." He made you promise, and then Peter's like, yeah, he did. Or she just stands there. And this one, they're back together, and then they break up again. Then they're back together, and they break up. It's... It pisses me off. They're taking an MJ route, and I hate it. Harry Osborn is awful in this film. It is so overacted and so blankly acted, and I think it is stupid. The Green Goblin looks like if Frankenstein had a child who was not Frankenstein, who was not the son of Frankenstein. I gave up on the joke halfway through. I do think this is a good movie. It's not a great movie. It is just it's not okay. It's just fine. It's just okay. It's fine. Yeah, it's fine. The acting is not great in this one, but it does have the most memorable scene in any Spider-Man film. And that is Gwen Stacy's death. That's the only scene I remember. That and the Times Square scene with Electro. Speaking of Electro, he's so weird. Why'd they have to write him like that? I know that's how he was in the comics, but he's just like... Okay, they tried to do depth with him, and then they ruined it. And it doesn't make any sense, because they have this villain, then they have the other villain. Then the two villains team up. But then the two villains go against each other, but they don't, because they're still going at Spider-Man. It's really stupid. This also is a really sad one. I cried when Gwen Stacy died. Cinematography is great. It has the greatest final battle, like, ever. In Spider-Man. Deleted scenes. There's some 2 deleted scenes I want to talk about. After Gwen Stacy dies, Green Goblin was laughing his rectum off. Okay, what the hell? He was laughing, he was just laughing, he was cracking up. He was cracking the joint up, I guess. Okay. He was laughing. And then, at Peter Parker's pain that he just lost his girlfriend. So Peter Parker is climbing back up and, like, almost beats him to death. And that would have been so much better than just having him cry. And then cut to the funeral. Then Peter at the funeral, after the funeral, so he keeps going back to the grave, it's like a montage, and he sees his father! And they cut it out, so there was no Amazing Spider-Man 3. What the hell, Sony? The ending, oh my god. Rhino, oh my god. Played by John Adams, Paul Giamatti. What was that? Who thought that was a good idea? This movie is so ridiculous and stupid. Jamie Foxx is okay. He's Jamie Foxx. What's not to love? But why? This movie is so weird. I'm less likely to rewatch this one. Probably only Gwen's death. But they're so cute. Peter's a stalker. He's a creep. Peter sucks in all these movies. He's such a jerk. I don't know. He's a creepy jerk. That's it. Okay, that was Amazing Spider-Man. 6 out of 10. Because why not? Now, I do believe we have Spider-Man Homecoming, the Tom Holland film, so... Pew, 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 pew. The Amazing Spider-Man, being released in 2012, is ironically directed by Mark Webb and stars Andrew Garfield as the titular character, Peter Parker. So this one, for some reason, is not many people's favorites. It's actually, they put it for some reason at their bottom. I actually like this movie. Maybe it's because of nostalgia bias. These were the Spider-Man films that I grew up on. I didn't see the second one until all the way through till recently, but I have seen the first one before. And this is my Spider-Man. Andrew Garfield has always been my favorite Spider-Man, and I've yet to see that in a change. I haven't seen the Raimi trilogy yet, but I have seen these 2 films. I just watched them a couple days ago. I left, then came back. These ones follow a more structured storyline than, like, see, the thing with the Tom Holland films, so far, No Way Home, not No Way Home, like Homecoming and Far From Home, is that they feel like, they don't feel like one continuous story. I know they're part of a bigger timeline, but even if you piece those things together, they don't feel like one flowing story, especially with the way they're possibly headed in No Way Home. Where these two, I don't know what it's like in the Raimi trilogy, it's probably like one flowing story, but these ones I feel like they flow in through one another almost perfectly. There's some inconsistencies, but I will get to that in a little bit. The second one is more infamous than the first one, but I will get to the second one in just a little bit. So I thought this first one was pretty good. I wasn't expecting, it's probably my favorite Spider-Man movie so far, excluding the Raimi trilogy. I liked it more than Homecoming. But I don't think that it deserves all the hate it gets. It's not going to get the higher rating, it's not going to get any awards or anything. I don't think any of these films are going to get any of that. But it is much better of that. Okay, maybe it's because I prefer more serious tone, and it's just since they took a more of approach that way, I preferred it to that. And I do like how we got the CGI looks pretty well for the lizard. The plot on the other, so the plot all's pretty good based on comics, so of course it's going to be some super like stature. Okay, I don't know exactly the word, but my biggest issue with it is the dialogue. They turn like specific lines into monologues and stuff, and then there's some montages, but it doesn't all flow together. The way they did Peter Parker getting bit by the spider is beautiful, but really weird. The acting, oh my god, it is incredible. Andrew Garfield as Peter Parker does an incredible job, because of course he does. Emma Stone as Gwen Stacy. I prefer Gwen Stacy compared to every other version of MJ. I don't care for MJ in these new films. I'm not the biggest fan of Zendaya. I love Emma Stone. She was great in La La Land, Birdman. I can't think of some other films she was in off the top of my head, but I love her in general. But her as Gwen Stacy was absolutely, she did a great job, and her and Andrew had some great chemistry on screen, and they were both really cute. But Spider-Man has been my favorite superhero for years, I guess. And also these parts, if I'm saying I've never seen the Raimi trilogy, but the Raimi trilogy parts are before this, it's because I'm filming this out of order. So yeah. So these ones, the music I think is pretty good. I do like how they make Andrew's Spider-Man look. I kind of like, okay, so Andrew Garfield is like super nerdy in this one. He goes like, with his hand. Okay, that was a bad example, but like, if you've seen the movie, you know what I'm talking about. He has like the web, and he goes like, that is like, that's a real thing that people do. Tobey Maguire, I don't think he does that. And also, he's just a giant jerk in this film, which I love. He's just like, he goes around assaulting people at night, which, as his revenge story into saving people's lives, it's like a big 360, but it flows together pretty well. The Spider-Man portions of this films are really fun, but the Peter Parker versions, it's definitely much more depressing. There's this one basketball scene where it's him against Flash, and it is absolutely so fun to watch, and it's so ridiculous, but it's Spider-Man, and I love that, and I'm so glad they took a more serious approach to it, which in the second film really brings it up for me, because if it didn't have that more serious approach, it definitely would not have made it better. I don't like the ending to this film as much, where it kind of leaves it open-ended, but like Spider-Man, Peter Parker and Gwen's relationship isn't like resolved or anything, because the final battle with Lizard, it's cool, but it's just, a lot of this film doesn't make any sense. And since it's not a completed trilogy, it doesn't make any sense. And I don't like the opening, where it's like a bunch of, just stuff, like, okay, where it's like his parents bring him in to Aunt May. It kind of drags a little bit as an opening scene, and it doesn't make any sense at all. They try to make sense of it in the second one, but it doesn't work. Then I love Martin Sheen as Uncle Ben. He's adorable. Sally Field as Aunt May is also great. She's like, I for some reason I call Mrs. Field cookies Sally Field's cookies. So I guess this is basically, she's like the grandma, but she's an aunt. Okay. But I loved her, Mrs. Doubtfire, and she's great in this movie too. And everything just all wraps up neatly. This is probably the Spider-Man movie that I'll rewatch the most out of all of the ones I've seen so far. I didn't really like Far From Home the first time I watched it. I loved Homecoming. I'm really excited to rewatch that. And this one is just everything that I guess needed in a Spider-Man movie so far. I'm gonna give The Amazing Spider-Man a 7 out of 10. It is a fun movie. Okay, no it's not. It is a seriously dramatic, fun, ridiculous movie that I love. And it takes a, okay, yeah, I've already said it. 7 out of 10. 7.5 out of 10. I love this movie. It's great. Okay, on to Amazing Spider-Man 2. The Amazing Spider-Man 2 is also directed by Mark Webb and is a little bit longer than the first one. So this one follows almost immediately after the second one. Okay, no, it starts off with their graduation, but so Gwen and Peter's relationship was faulty because a promise he had to make to Gwen's father. I'm not going to spoil it for you, but a promise he had to make to Gwen's father. And then their relationship gets a little rocky, but it gets on the fritz. Then it gets a little difficult. And then they're patched up back together in the first one. And then afterwards, she breaks up with him. The relationship drama in this one is really boring. I loved it in the first one, but in this one, it is really boring. The Spider-Man scenes, I actually probably love more in this one. It has definitely probably the greatest final 20 minutes in any superhero movie. Okay, that's a little too much. But, like, it has, like Spider-Man super movies. Probably the greatest Spider-Man ending in my, okay. But this movie has a montage to the song that's like, for you, and I hate it so much. And then he tries to get us, this movie tries to get us to care about Peter's father, and I just can't. We killed Uncle Ben, and we can't care about this random dude that left. And then a deleted scene, he's back! What the hell, man? I didn't love this movie as much. I thought that Electro was really weird. Near the ending, okay, I shouldn't say the last 20 minutes, because it has a great finale portion. It has a great after finale, but right before the credits is the most open-ended, ridiculous junk you will ever see. And it is so stupid. And it stars the guy, Paul Giamatti, who played, John Adams. It's Peter realizing that he matters again. People need him. So he goes and fights this dude in a rhino suit. Who is Paul Giamatti? Come on! I love that scene so much. So, Electro is played by Jamie Foxx. Really weird. He's definitely not mentally stable. Okay, yeah, that's a good way to put it. Not mentally stable, but As a villain, I do like him in the final battle. It was terrifying. Okay. Harry Osborn. I did not like Harry Osborn. He talks like this. Peter, it doesn't matter how calm you want to talk. And they just turned into freaking Frankenstein at the end. It's ridiculous. I do love how they portray Gwen Stacy's death, though. If you don't know that, you haven't walked a day in looking... Okay. No, if you don't know Gwen Stacy dies and you haven't seen or read anything Spider-Man, it's pretty much, if you've seen the No Way Home trailer, look at the comments, or seen anything on social media, how MJ's falling, you know Gwen Stacy dies. I didn't know Gwen Stacy dies. I wasn't going to watch the movie. And after I was like, fine. I love how they portray that. It is... I have it as my live wallpaper. Like, you hold it... Okay, wait. And then, it's the whole scene. It is probably it has some of my favorite shots of all time. The zoom in... this movie uses slow-mo incredibly. I don't know, it's great. I don't love this one as much as the first one. It is definitely much slower, much more ridiculous, and I don't think that Harry Osborn could completely disarm and maim like two armed, what's it called? I don't want to say soldiers, but security guards. It's ridiculous. I don't remember much about this movie. It's very forgettable compared to the first one. But, yeah, I do love the ending. Before the ending. Yeah, okay. I think I'm gonna give this one a 6 out of 10. It's not great, but it's not awful. That's pretty much how you could describe any Spider-Man movie. Okay, yeah. Now, I think next is going to be the Tom Holland one, but okay. Yeah.
And now back to your regularly scheduled program.
Spider-Man Homecoming, the 7th overall theatrically released Spider-Man film starring Tom Holland and takes place inside the MCU, is directed by John Watts, and I just watched it as a part of this big franchise review thing I'm doing. And if it's not a franchise review when this comes out, this video is going to be screwed. So, I saw this movie. I saw all the Tom Holland Spider-Man movies with, like, Spider-Man No Way Home, Spider-Man Far From Home in the theater. Those were the movies I saw in the theater. Though I say I grew up with Andrew Garfield, those are the ones I watched on TV. Those were the ones I watched, like, separately. These ones I saw in the theater, and they were part of the MCU, so I was gonna watch them. I'm not the biggest MCU fan. I mean, I still love Marvel, but, like, it's not all my jam. It's not my thing entirely, but I do love the Spider-Man films and the Avengers films that I have seen, which is all except for Age of Ultron. But, yeah, this is pretty straightforward. So, basically, this one, it kind of hops in between two different storylines. Like, it feels more like an anthology television series strung together. And by that, I mean, like, there's one scene, like, he's trying to stop a boat in one scene, then he's saving an elevator in another, and then he's stuck in this warehouse room before that, and then it's basically hopping around, and it doesn't have a full main structured plot. Then it doesn't have its full footing until, like, the last 20 minutes, which this movie is pretty great. I was expecting it because I'm the biggest fan of Tom Holland. I think he's a great actor, but, like, he's okay. And then seeing him in these movies, so Tobey Maguire had that nerdiness to him. Andrew Garfield, but he still looked like a 30-year-old man. Andrew Garfield, he was, I don't know what he'd fallen. He was a kid that shouldn't get bullied because he's just too cool for school. But Tom Holland is like it's weirdly realistic how, like, he's the awkward teenager. He's literally 14, a Spider-Man 14-year-old, not a 35-year-old playing a 14-year-old. He was like 20 when they filmed Spider-Man Homecoming. But, I do like a lot of this film. The music is great. There's a lot of comedy in it, and I like how just pretty straightforward it is. There's not much depth. Like, Far From Home, it was very slow. On my first time, I've only seen it once. It was a very slow, not perfectly put together movie. But this movie is really well paced. But like I said, it hops around a lot, which kind of makes it confusing on how to follow it. Like, it's like a television series filled in with a bunch of shorts that have somewhat led up to a big finale, but it's kind of... I have never read Sherlock Holmes, but I'm going to use that as an example. Like, these were serials originally, but, it all led up to something connecting. And that's what I felt like this movie was. Michael Keaton's villain, what's the villain's name? Vulture was a pretty cool steampunk villain. I like that, his costume. I love Spider-Man's costume, I love the homemade costume, and it's just, this movie is more of like, considering everything to the MCU, I wouldn't say it's more plot, doesn't fit into the whole story structure. It's a good one-off movie that still fits into the story, but it's not, like, extremely important. Like, Far From Home is very story-based in the whole story of the MCU. This one is basically just Peter Parker. This is his movie. It's more of a comedy action than anything. It's more of a comedy action than Deadpool 2. It's pretty funny. Some jokes didn't land because once again, MCU is not my thing, so I don't find every MCU joke funny. But, like, the Spider-Man, it all pretty much, like, the action is really great. The final battle with Vulture is really cool. I like that it happened at Coney Island. See, they kind of replaced, Uncle Ben with Tony Stark, which I think is kind of interesting. But Aunt May is much younger in this one, which kind of throws it off. But it all loops back together in Far From Home. The post-credit scene doesn't lead up to anything, which bothers me, because, like, they ditch it, and now Michael Keaton Vulture is going to be in Morbius, which I thought was a Matrix movie, Morpheus, but, like, Spider-Man, yeah, this movie is evidently why he's my favorite hero. He's fun. Spider-Man is probably the most personality hero. Like, Tony Stark is pretty straightforward businessman at the beginning. Like, he's pretty cocky and just a jerk at the beginning. And then, like they're all... he feels like just a character. He's probably the most relatable out of all of them. But, like, it all just molds together. I'm not the biggest fan of Zendaya, and I'm glad that she wasn't overbearing like she is in Far From Home. But I love Ned. I love the ending. It's hilarious. But this movie is very wholesome. If I had to sum it up in one word, it's wholesome. Yeah, that's it. Donald Glover is in it for some of the time. He's in it for like 3 scenes, and he's absolutely hilarious. But, like, Pepper Potts comes in at the end. It's basically just a bunch of anthology shorts culminating in one grand finale. But yeah, I like it. I like this movie. I think it's pretty fair to not set it too high, because I do think that the first 2 Sam Raimi films are great, but this is better than every other Spider-Man movie I've watched so far. I haven't seen Into the Spider-Verse yet. So yeah, I'm gonna give Spider-Man Homecoming a 7.5 out of 10. It's not gonna get an award, only because I feel like it didn't have a smooth enough plot structure, but it's definitely going to be one of the ones I rewatch the most. If I were to sit down if I were flipping on TV and I saw, like, a Sam Raimi on, I'm probably going to put that on. If I see Homecoming on, probably not. I'm probably going to put Homecoming on compared to, like, Andrew Garfield or Far From Home. I don't like Far From Home. But yeah, I think the next movie is Into the Spider-Verse. And also, that initial reaction thing, it's kind of acting as an intermission. Like, for the Harry Potter, I did the Hogwarts house thing. Okay. Did the Hogwarts house thing. So, yeah, that was kind of an intermission. It was unnecessary, I guess, but I wanted to at least, for some people who are interested, which I don't think anyone is, but just in case, I wanted to have the footage go to at least some use. So, yeah, Into the Spider-Verse. Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse came out in 2018 and is the only animated film that I am covering with this Spider-Man stuff. Because there are a lot of animated projects that have come out with Spider-Man and just Marvel superheroes in general. But I'm not going to cover that because this is basically theatrically released films. These are my brother's video games, so yeah, I haven't played them. And like, it's my brother, so Miles Morales, there's the MBK 21 disc. So, yeah. So, I watched this a couple days ago, and the reason I haven't gotten to doing a review of it yet was because I was waiting to watch Far From Home, but it's been taking me so long to actually get to it, because hence the nice clothing. I wouldn't usually wear something like this for a review, but I'm gonna watch Far From Home after this, but I wanted to watch this before I watched Far From Home, because I knew I was gonna have this problem. I watched this film in one day. Like some Spider-Man films, it took me over, like, 3 days to watch. Like, the first Spider-Man, The Amazing Spider-Man, because I had school, it took me about 3 days to watch each of them. But, so, let's kind of just get straight into the gist. So, Miles Morales, basically, well, vandalizing something, gets bitten by a radioactive spider and becomes Spider-Man after Peter Parker dies. And so then there are basically just a bunch of, I guess, variants, if you want to use Loki terminology, coming in from different different universes, which is, there's this anime character, let me see real quick. I know Nicolas Cage plays Spider-Man Noir. John Mulaney, who I love, I love his comedy. I don't know how he is as a person, because I don't think he's that great of a person. From what I've heard or something, but I love John Mulaney's comedy. He plays Peter Porker. Kimiko Glenn plays, I hope I'm not butchering that. Kimiko Glenn plays Penny Parker. Nick Cage plays Peter Parker, Spider-Man Noir. And then Haley Steinfeld plays Gwen Stacy. Yeah, so, and then there's Peter B. Parker. Okay, so let me talk about Miles Morales real quick. Shamik Moore, I don't sure if I'm pronouncing that right or wrong. Miles Morales is such a great protagonist. It's such a refreshing break from Peter Parker. Though he is in it, it's nice to have someone else take up the stance as Spider-Man. He is unnecessarily relatable, which kind of scares me, how these grown men could do that. Okay, it's just, I don't know. He's so great. He's such well-written, such well-animated. Okay, let me talk about that. The animation is absolutely incredible. This movie is going to have the highest rating out of any Spider-Man, so spoiler. But, excluding No Way Home. But it's not one I'm going to rewatch that much. Oh my god. I mean, not like rewatch often, because it does have a few pacing issues. It does kind of slow down. But like the animated, every sequence is so well animated, and the villains are really entertaining. Kingpin, Catherine Hahn, Olivia Octavius. It's all forming together to create this great, like, I don't know if it's a Sinister Six. I love the plot twist. There's so many plot twists in here. This one I'm not going to talk much about because my camera's about to die and I don't have much to say that hasn't been said. But the animation is absolutely beautiful. The final battle is incredible. There are so many references to the comic books. Everything is so accurate to comic books in the Spider-Man films that it all just falls into play for this merely perfect animated film. Now, I thought this was the same people who did the Lego movie. I love the Lego movie, and it looked, and Mitchell's vs. the Machines looked shockingly similar to this, but it wasn't, and I don't know, it's, okay. Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse is one of the, it's probably the highest, the best Spider-Man film in terms of quality, in terms of everything. It's the best Spider-Man film, even though it's animated. Just because it's animated doesn't mean it's bad. The suits, Aunt May, everything is just so fun. It's like so, the comedy isn't overbearing. It works because some comedy works more in an animated setting than a live action setting, and they make use of this animated setting. And they block out specific things with character shadows and stuff, which makes it so much more. Just, yeah. And I forgot the name of the villain, but one of the villains has this awesome sound to it, and I love it. It's the, I can't play it because I'll get striked, but it's so cool. It's so cool. So yeah, that's all I have to say about it, because I don't know, I'll just be saying the same thing over and over if I keep going. I'm gonna give Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse a 9.5 out of 10. The first trophy. The Spider-Man films. But yeah, it's Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. Great film. I really recommend it to everyone who hasn't seen it. I recommend every Spider-Man movie to anyone who hasn't seen it, except for Far From Home. And I didn't like Far From Home. I've never liked Far From Home, before everyone started hating on Jake Gyllenhaal. But yeah, screw Jake Gyllenhaal. Spider-Man Far From Home. Spider-Man Far From Home is the second installment of the Homecoming trilogy, and so I have been on record saying that I absolutely despise this film. I like it now. So I rewatched it this morning. I woke up at 4, did it while doing homework, watched it while doing homework. And it was exactly how I remember. Visually, storylinely, editedly, except it was much faster paced. It was like bang, 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 and it was much easier to get through this time while watching it. Let me get the elephant out of the room the way. Jake Gyllenhaal was good in this movie, and I mean that. And he took the script, which is not the greatest script, and made it good. Like, he took some ridiculous lines, like the stupid villain monologue. Please shoot me. I hate that so much. When the villain, right before getting killed, you can't kill me. Ugh. Like, at least the Green Goblin, he had that moment of realization. He didn't have that villain monologue. He was pleading for his life. Darth Vader was mostly competent, but like, most superhero movies now always have that quippy one-liner that the villains say before they get killed, and I hate how Mysterio does that. I do love the drone concept, don't get me wrong, but yeah. Also, Tom Holland is at his best in this film. He has one of the best scenes where he's in a fight with Happy. Also, that scene, well, not a fight, where he's yelling at Happy, but there's this one scene in a flower garden, which is gorgeous. I cannot explain how much I love it. It is one of the best, it is probably the best shot scene in the MCU outside of Russo brother films. There is so much to hate, but also so much to love. There's some wonky editing when Mysterio gets revealed to be the bad guy, and that it's not all real. But I do like how they do what M. Night Shyamalan did, and where once you realize something, you start having fun with it. He did that in The Sixth Sense. Like, when you realize that Malcolm, or the kid, I think his name was Malcolm, starts seeing dead people, he started having fun with it. There was ghosts in almost every scene. And that's what they do in this film. But luckily, we got the reveal of Mysterio being the villain, and Peter got the reveal a couple scenes later. It wasn't that bad. I do like how they fill in the blanks. I do like MJ and Peter. I'm not the biggest fan of Zendaya, but I do like her in this film. She is good in this film. But, yeah, this one, it was not as bad as I remember, and it was much easier to get through. The editing is weird. I do like, how Peter's reaction to grieving Tony Stark, and I used to adamantly, make it clear that I hate how much they showed the grieving process, but it is not present in this film as much as I remember it being. I don't like Nick Fury in this film. He pisses me off, and I do like how Peter actually has some consequences. But yes, that's all I have to say about No Way Home. I used to not like this film, now I do, and I hate that I do. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. Wait, no, I'm not done. Wait, okay. I don't like the relationship, but I do. Okay, there's some perfectly written relationships in this film, but it does get annoying and overbearing, and I don't like the comedic. I don't like the comedy overriding this film because it does that so badly, and it doesn't balance it completely like it did in the Raimi trilogy or in Homecoming. But I think it was either this film where they expanded or completely cut down the writers. I'm not exactly sure. I will look at that later. But yeah, I am just really excited for No Way Home. Spider-Man Far From Home, I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10. It is not as good as Homecoming, but it does have superior moments to Homecoming. Homecoming was more as like a little... Homecoming can be treated as a comfort movie. This movie is more run-of-the-mill superhero film, which kind of gives it its little detriments for it being a little too MCU-ish for the MCU. But yeah, 7 out of 10. Would watch again. Okay. Spider-Man No Way Home! No Way Home!
Ladies and gents, this is the moment you've waited for.
Spider-Man No Way Home is the most recent Spider-Man film and acts as a culmination of the Homecoming trilogy of Peter Parker in the MCU. I'm going to be separating this into two pieces. This is probably going to possibly a 40-minute spoiler review, which is going to come out after Christmas. Then I'm going to have the spoiler review be a part of my franchise review I'm doing for Spider-Man. But I'm going to have a spoiler-free review right now of Spider-Man No Way Home. So I have a bunch of bullet points on my phone right here. I was expecting this to be either really good or really bad. It depended on how they utilized specific aspects of plot, story, character, considering we already had the Sinister Six villains. So basically, the plot is that in the post-credits scene of Spider-Man Far From Home, Mysterio reveals Peter Parker's identity. And everyone in the world finds out. There's a quote that's like that comes from extremely wicked, shockingly evil, and vile that could have perfectly worked. I'm bigger than Disney World. That he is the biggest thing on Earth at that moment. He gets in a bunch of legal troubles because, Spider-Man 2 had the finance issues, and now we have legal troubles, because we really need some realistic Spider-Man. And then he goes to Doctor Strange to try to get everyone to forget him, but then he botches the spell by talking, and a bunch of villains from different universes come in and terrorize it. So, this movie reintroduced J. Jonah Jameson as a character. Like, they reintroduced him as an MCU character, so Daily Bugle canon in the MCU. Everything post-Endgame is, like, in its own little world. So, if it doesn't call back to it, which it doesn't really, it feels like something completely different. And it's so weird, but it's something that I don't like about J. Jonah Jameson in this film. Not because he's J.K. Simmons, not because he's great. He's a great actor, really fun to watch, really fun to just look at all his aneurysms and stuff, just to watch everything, his yelling. It does not fit in the MCU with this dark timeline, and especially with what this film tries to do. Which smoothly transitions to my next point. This is the darkest MCU film. Peter Parker suffers consequences because he gets really hurt. He gets more hurt than Tobey Maguire at the end of Spider-Man, the first one. He gets, like, all scuffed up. I can't even say how much it was so refreshing to see. This is why I love, another reason why I love Infinity War, which is my second to favorite MCU film, is that there were consequences. It wasn't just, oh, happy doodah. Something happens, and it doesn't get fixed immediately, or at some point at all. Which leaves it cliffhangers, untied plot lines that they can come back to in future films, because he is getting the college trilogy and the Spider-Man freshman year show on Disney+. And, yeah, so like I said earlier, it does start off with the scene where Spider-Man's identity is revealed. It should have I don't like how they did the opening credits. The opening credits is J. Jonah Jameson doing his little monologue saying, "Spider-Man is a menace." I just find that kind of annoying. But there's a point, it's around half an hour in, you get some breakneck pacing. It throws you right into this film. And you go on the roller coaster and you're getting rattled around. It is so, it's not ridiculous, it's fun, it's hilarious, and the fight scenes, all the fight scenes are incredible. Like, I don't think there's one dull fight scene. If there's significance, if there's a dull fight scene that doesn't have significance, it's not in this film. That can go sit in, like, a Thor, or just the whole movie of Black Widow, I guess. But, yeah, the comedy is okay in some sections. I don't like how overbearing, this is my biggest issue with the MCU, is that when there's a dark moment, you have Rocket the Raccoon going, "Yeah, and that's how I died. Now where are the chimichangas?" That's like something like that. They did the same issue in Deadpool 2, where it kept going and going. This film was a little bit balanced, and when they do use comedy, it does work well. Some characters are treated as comedic relief, which kind of bothered me, but it was just balanced enough for it not to completely ruin the film. I love this film, I'll tell you that much. Spider-Man is my favorite superhero, so of course I'm going to give this one of the highest ratings out of all superhero films. Let me talk about something. So, Tobey Maguire Spider-Man was fun, fancy-free. It wasn't much depth. Everything was taken at face value, and if there was a character arc, it was explored. Andrew Garfield's was the darker, grittier tone skater boy kid from The Social Network. He was the better acting of the two. Tom Holland, as much as you may hate him because he's annoying, he stole Zendaya from you, he can really act. And this is why, if you're doubting, like, if you feel ashamed for him being your favorite Spider-Man, if there's another reason, then that if he's your favorite Spider-Man, other than because he's attractive, then you don't need to be worried. You don't need to defend yourself. He's not my favorite Spider-Man. My favorite is Andy. My favorite is Andrew Garfield. But I was shocked at how well he could act. He did it in Far From Home 2 when he was in that fight scene with Happy. He has some really good scenes. He is incredible in the ending. Everything, when consequences come towards him, you can see the pain and desperation that he's going through. It is just like, so like, yeah. The romance, which was my biggest issue with the Raimi trilogy. I don't like overbearing romances in superhero films. Come on, it's just annoying. It fit. MJ and Peter's relationship was balanced because it wasn't overbearing and it felt real enough. It felt like it could actually happen, and this is what would happen during that. It's not even a war, it's just 1 on 6. Let's see. The Sinister Six. This was the most promoted thing. Everything had the Doc Ock on the bridge scene. Or MJ falling. So this one, you have Lizard, Willem Dafoe, as Green Goblin. I love Willem Dafoe. Doc Ock. I also love Doc Ock. Jamie Foxx as Electro, who definitely, I have some issues with him, and Sandman. Let me start off with my issues. Sandman and Lizard are luckily sidelined, and they are the least interesting characters out of them all. And they poke fun at Lizard's plan, and I absolutely love that. Everything that was referenced in past movies is made fun of in the most respectful way, I guess, if I had to put it in a specific term. Okay. Willem Dafoe is definitely my favorite actor. He's adorable. He does this Harvey Two-Face type thing where he's like completely two different people, which is the Green Goblin's character. But it's just the way he does it. He does this like malformation, or that's not a word, like this formation of two different things, and then like plot, like there's a bunch of twists and turns and stuff. Doc Ock, I do like how they treat him in this film. If everything, so if there was a character arc that was in the first one, it is completed, added on to, or justified. This one, you almost get pissed off that everything that happened in Spider-Man 2 means nothing. But then they save it. I'm not going to tell you how. But if this is spoiler-free, they save that issue. Jamie Foxx, I do not like this character because of the inconsistency. Jamie Foxx's character, Max Dillon, in The Amazing Spider-Man 2, is this weird, wacky Riddler type from Batman Forever, I think. I'm not sure. He's this obsessed with Spider-Man. Spider-Man's my best friend. Come on. They made him to Django, I guess. They made him to, like, there, where his mental instability created at least some form of interesting pieces, but, like, yeah, they also explore how each of them got there. Sandman. So this film has some of the greatest MCU cinematography ever. All the Spider-Man films have great cinematography. If I had to choose a franchise out of excluding Russo Brothers films, if I had to choose a franchise out of all the MCU, I'd choose Spider-Man in best terms of cinematography, music, because the Russo Brothers films are like the toppity top of the MCU. This film managed to hike its way up there. Cinematography, it has there has this really good one take near the beginning, and that's when he's shutting all the windows because people are like surrounding his house and stuff. And it is really smooth. The editing is really good. It does that weird explosion shot where it's like GoPro and it's facing down. It's like super distorted or just not as high quality. But almost every shot in this film is gorgeous. Like the framing has some Damien Chazelle type framing where like Lizard's on this side. Yeah, and also fan theories, wrong. Yeah. So, but the cinematography, absolutely gorgeous. The music, the final battle music is incredible. The last spell music is incredible. This score is gorgeous. I don't understand. I can't explain it. Just listen to like the background music, because like don't just ignore it. It is there to emotionally impact you, and it does work. I did laugh. I did cry. I did woo! You know, the type of people at the theater. Spider-Man No Way Home! But yeah, Doctor Strange is in this movie. Doctor Strange used to be my favorite superhero when Far From Home came out, because I did not like Far From Home. But, he was my favorite superhero. I just thought he was really cool, because it's Doctor Strange. He has, like, time travel powers and stuff, so it's cool. But, Doctor Strange, he does some stuff, like, also, let's Scooby-Doo this crap. The line is, let's Scooby-Doo this. So, the line is actually, let's Scooby-Doo this S-H-I-T word. So, there's this really cool battle. This is spoiler territory now. Everything now, I'm gonna talk about some stuff real quick. Yeah, it's all in here. So, this is spoiler review. This is the time. Toby and Andrew. Oh my god, they're in it, and it's so fun. They're not in it they're pretty much, like, once they're on it, they don't dominate. It's all split in. I don't like how Andrew is kind of comic relief. I don't like how, I absolutely love their cameos. It is so fun to watch. And, Ned getting Doctor Strange's powers, works really well. Let me take that back. It doesn't. He gets the ring, which I think that's what gives him the strength and the powers to do it. But it gets us Toby and Andrew, so I don't think we're complaining, though it doesn't make that much sense. It's still better than not having them in it, because this was the main draw for almost everyone, to see if they're really in it. And thank God, Marvel, I don't care if it's fan service. All of this movie's fan service. The Sinister Six film, it's all fan service. But the fact that they actually gave into that, and I don't know, it's a great film. What the heck? My hair's like popping up. Yeah, Toby and Andrew are in it. It's super well written. I like how there's, like, scientists and Spider-Man, and it does not waste its time. It's not like boring science stuff like in The Amazing Spider-Man, and it's not like over-the-top comedy like in Spider-Man. But this one, it's perfectly balanced, and there's this one scene where, like, Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire, like, Andrew Garfield cracks Tobey's back, and I do love the reference that when he fell in Spider-Man 2, I'm not exactly sure, he was like, oh, my back, because he was, like, he faked back illness for a check or something? I don't know. Yes, so what I was talking about earlier was Ned's Doctor Strange abilities. It's weird. It's a little bit weird. But it's easy to do. Oh my god. It's weird. It's a little bit weird. But it's easy to give in. And if you just so fan service. If you like Spider-Man, watch this film. Doesn't matter if you think it's good or not. If you like Tobey Maguire or Andrew Garfield Spider-Man more than Tom Holland, watch this film. It doesn't matter if they're only in it for the last act. It all perfectly melds together. This is Tom Holland's film. Yeah. So, the fan service, I said the same thing about Dr. Sleep. I'm fine with fan service if it's done right. Dr. Sleep has some heavy fan service. In the director's cut, even more fan service. It's like, yikes. But yeah, it works really well. Everything, they just hit it on the mark. It was on the park home run. Maybe I'm enjoying this because I just needed a break. I don't know. But it was definitely worth the payback and stuff. Like the pushing back the time. Andrew's redemption. Oh yes! So, you know the scene where Gwen Stacy was falling. You know the scene in the trailer where MJ was falling. And it was a reference to Gwen Stacy's death. And everyone was speculating Andrew's gonna catch her. Well, guess what? You're right. So basically, MJ's falling. Peter's going to get her. It is Tom Holland's hand reaching out, but then he gets struck, not killed or stabbed. He just gets struck by the Green Goblin's little thing. But basically, he gets pushed over to the side, and then Andrew's like, no, not this time. And then he drops down, and then he picks it up, and then he picks her up. He's like, yeah. And then he starts crying. It's kind of played for laughs, which I don't understand. But there was a scene previously when they're first introduced. Andrew is in his Spider-Man outfit. Tobey Maguire has, of course, it under his normal street clothes. Yeah. So they talk about how people they lost. And so Peter's going to lose someone important in his life, whether it be Happy or Aunt May. Happy gets arrested, but that's right after Aunt May gets killed by the Green Goblin. I cried. It was a super sad scene, and I don't think it helped right before Tom Holland starts crying and stuff. It's like, ah! But it was super nice and super refreshing to see consequences, like I said. But, yeah, I love this film so much. Let's see. So, then the last act, the Green Goblin, he killed May, and then so Peter is like beating the living hellhound out of him, and then he takes up his thing, and right before he does it, Tobey stops him. And that's supposed to be, Peter is going out there. All Spider-Man movies had that moment. Spider-Man 3 had that moment where he pushed Mary Jane Watson with the symbiote, or however you say that word, or spell that word. How do you say, then in Andrew Garfield, I think it was the scene where he almost killed Gwen Stacy's father. I'm not sure. Andrew Garfield, all Spider-Man movies have that moment where they go just a little bit over the edge and just start going a little bit too far. And like, Batman eventually reaches that moment, where he just turns dark. Maybe when Robin dies. Who knows? But Tobey stops him, and he gets stabbed. Yeah, he doesn't die. No. He just gets stabbed, he falls, and is smiling, and then Andrew's like, I love you guys. It's a super wholesome moment at the end. Also, the leak where Andrew says, you like have web blood? No, it's web block. It's not web blood. But, yeah, I don't know. Tobey gets stabbed. The final spell, there's an extra 5 minutes. I was expecting it to be over. But he wishes and says goodbye to Zendaya and Ned in like a very long, drawn-out way, which I was like, when is this going to be over? It's going to be fine. No! Doctor Strange casts a spell, and everyone forgets about him. No one remembers he's Spider-Man. And it ends in the same way as The Amazing Spider-Man 2, where he goes off and does that thing. Well, speaking of The Amazing... okay. They talk about all the people he fight, where, he was like... where Tobey Maguire was like, I fought an alien from space. I fought, like, a spludge from space. This is a comedy, basically poking fun at each other. I really wish they did the pointing meme, but I mean, they kind of did it. I don't know. It's not that big of a deal. If they did that, I feel like that'd be overkill, which I'm actually kind of glad they didn't do that. But yeah, it all just falls into line to be one merely perfect superhero film. This is my favorite superhero film, by far. And the final spell, he walks in, and this scene, there are some much slower scenes near the end. But you're still engaged because you're wondering, is he going to say... So he has this card, and then he's trying to say it. He's trying to say the stuff to Mary Jane. Or, sorry, not Mary Jane, to MJ and to Ned, but he doesn't. He just orders a coffee and leaves. He goes to Aunt May's grave. He sees Happy Hogan. Doesn't say anything. He doesn't say that he's Spider-Man, or that he knows him. But wait, that means Peter has no Stark tech. Because, I mean, Tony Stark never met him. So yeah, I don't know. They're gonna have to fix that. But yes, this final spell basically said consequences have actions, because the whole thing is that, is it right for them or is it right for you? Yeah. Doctor Strange, people were saying he's Mephisto. No. No, we don't need another villain. I'm fine with just this stuff. Let me talk about Doc Ock real quick. So I was misunderstanding how the villains all come back and they have this character arc. They had their character arc, and then some of them did, and like some of them didn't die. It's a whole mess. But like I also like the Nightcrawlers too. I like them shooting. I like that little thing they do where trying to find all the people from different universes. But it definitely works really well. So Jamie Foxx, they're all like sitting there, and then they're all looking at Stark Tech, and it's all really like Norman Osborn is in the dumps, but it just doesn't work that well. And then you start to realize, like, because it's a little off-putting seeing all these bad villains, except for Doc Ock, being like, oh, just chill and just sitting on the couch and stuff. But then you start to realize after a while, Jamie Foxx is like, I don't want to do this, and then he sets off this whole thing. Also, the final battle on the Statue of Liberty is great. Yeah. So then Doc Ock, he stops. Who is it? Jamie Foxx, Electro. He stops Electro from killing and frying Andrew Garfield and/or Tobey Maguire and/or Tom Holland. I forgot. But like he stops them, and it's like, yeah, he goes off, and it's super nice to see his character arc go finish because they get it on, and then once he realizes they're in control, yeah. That's Spider-Man No Way Home. Then the post-credit scene. At the end of Venom Let There Be Carnage, they are transported to the Sony universe. Then, basically, the post-credit scene is Eddie Brock asking about the universe, and then leaving. But then a piece of the symbiote is left. So, he was a sixth member of the Sinister Six, I guess. I don't know. But all the visuals, the best scene visually is, there's two scenes. One that's really cool, one that's really Inception inspired heavy, Inception inspiration heavy, and that's Doctor Strange's fight with Peter, and then there's Peter mourning Aunt May before they all come and go console him, I guess, if that's a word I'm looking for. It left off a cliffhanger. Then the Doctor Strange 2 trailer. Yeah, okay, so this was really cool. I haven't seen Doctor Strange yet, but it does show off, like, it picks up back where WandaVision was, it brings them there, and this, and that, and yeah, I don't want to talk about that much because they're eventually going to officially release it, but it looks like it's going to be a very dark tone. There's going to be, like, a lot of, it's going to be very confusing, and it's also, that one's directed by Sam Raimi, so I'm really excited for that. I just want to see a Doctor Strange film directed by Christopher Nolan. That'd be really cool. But yeah. Spider-Man No Way Home is my favorite MCU film. I'll be right back. My favorite MCU film and favorite superhero film of all time. So yeah, if you don't know my rating system, 8 out of 10 to an out of 10 is a golden ticket, and I prefer it a 10 to a 10 out of 10 is a trophy. I don't know if this is overkill. I don't know if I'm just being a little too nice, but I'm going to give Spider-Man No Way Home a 10 out of 10. All of this was leading up to this, and I'm so glad I watched these films because they actually mean a lot to me. So yeah. Here's the conclusion. So this concludes my Spider-Man franchise review. This is way too zoomed in. So this concludes my Spider-Man franchise review. Like I said in the intro, Spider-Man has meant so much to me. And I hope I did not spoil anything, because I said if you have not seen No Way Home or any of the Spider-Man films, do not watch this video. I really need you to just go watch these films. I'm not going to do like a whole recap, but I am going to do my ranking real quick, because I don't, and then I'm going to probably do it a second video. So, out of the 9 theatrically released Spider-Man films, so, number 9 is The Amazing Spider-Man 2. Number 8 is Spider-Man 3. Number 7 is The Amazing Spider-Man. Number 6 is Spider-Man Far From Home. Number 5 is Spider-Man Homecoming. Number 4 is Spider-Man 2002, Sam Raimi. Number 3 is Spider-Man 2. Number 2 is Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. And number 1 is Spider-Man No Way Home. So yes, this has been... Spider-Man No Way Home was the most satisfying film that I've ever seen in a theater. It was a culmination to films that I've been building up to for months. Yeah, so, thank you guys so much for watching. Happy Merry Chrismakahnza. And I think I'm going to give... So, Spider-Man... One second, let me do some math real quick. Never mind, I'm not going to do the math, I'm just going to wing it. I'm going to give the Spider-Man... I'm going to give the whole thing, as a whole, I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10. Because it's the most influential superhero films. So yeah, that's just a plain basic reason. Thank you guys so much for watching. Stay golden, everyone. Happy Merry Chrismakahnza. Or whatever else you celebrate.